The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Fire Store makes is about you, the customer. They wouldn't be where they are today without you, and they don't take that lightly. They understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. The goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit them at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop the family of brands that include Streamlight, MSA, Lion, FLIR, and more.
Out there in Blog Talk Radio land, fire engineering world, honored that you would come and spend some time with us today. And man, do we have a show for you. Michael and I have been pumped and excited about doing this ever since we started filming these things. And, you know, sadly now you folks don't just get to hear our dulcet voices. You are burdened now with having to take a look at us in our various domiciles. It's a privilege, man. I want you to know that, gang. Your time is valuable. We get it. You do not get to ever get back the heartbeats that you're going to spend with us over the next hour, hour and a half. And I want you to know we take it seriously. And to prove that, we don't mess around. We bring in the brightest and the best that our sacred calling has to offer. And that is very much true today with bringing you our buddy from FDNY, Chief Frank Leeb. We're going to talk about his new book. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about mentoring. And then we may even talk about some odd things like dressing up in hot dog costumes or something like that. So, you know, we'll see how this whole thing goes today. Could not do it, gang. The Mikey G and Mikey D show does not function without my brother from another mother who is coming to you usually from, you know, the sunny shores of Long Island. And today from, well, Michael, today from
the mountains of North Georgia, outside of Dahlonega, Georgia. We were here for a family reunion. I have a great family tradition that any one of my brothers or sisters turns 60. The other 5, there are 6 of us, have to show up to you for a meal. And anybody turns 70, you can pick a spot. So we spent 4 nights in Helen, Georgia for Oktoberfest with my family, and all of them were there, and a bunch of their spouses were there. So there were 11 of us. And now we are in Dahlonega with my younger brother who turned 60 in January, and my sister who turned 70 in August. We're here, and they're coming back from a winery. So if all of a sudden it gets real loud and crazy here, you'll know why. Okay. But I'm sitting in a rented house. The lighting is not perfect. I apologize. And I don't know how good the wireless is going to be, but we're going to try.
Yeah, we won't worry about that. You look beautiful, my friend. And you're sending people to a winery in Georgia. What could go wrong? Right? What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Well, Michael, you and I have had a kind of an interesting couple of weeks, you know, before we get into our guest. We just have been in, Nashville and in Dallas together and doing stuff for the Firefighter Air Coalition, and kind of exciting. Both Nashville and Dallas and Fort Worth Fire both got firefighter air replenishment systems in their training towers. So they're right now training their people in the air standpipe so that when oh dark 30 in the middle of the night when they're a football field in the sky. They don't have to go find air, at a staging area that may or may not be set up. But good times there, huh, brother? I mean, what a blast to hang out with Nashville and Texas firefighters.
Oh, my goodness. They were so great, and such great leadership with those people, working towards their people getting the newest technology to make it work for the firefighters. And I mean, again, it helps you with your high-rise operations, big box stores, and all that other stuff. But it's great to see people on the forefront, and we had a lot of people very interested in the systems and how the refills work and everything else. So it was really pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting, Mike. As you're aware, I've been invested in air and air management issues for a long time. And to see leadership across the nation starting to wake up that in these big structures, we just do not have sufficient air, and we're always cutting corners, and we're always running out, and we do what we got to do to get the job done. It's incredible to actually see leadership step up and say, we're not going to tolerate it anymore. And we need, to get water up there for long distances, we need water standpipes and pumps and things like that. And the air standpipe now is starting to become standard for folks who are actually leading and caring about their people. And so it was cool to see. And it leads me into, we're going to spend some time today just talking leadership. And I'll tell you, it's been a while since I've seen buzz around a particular book coming out like I've seen with our next guest book. I don't know that I get on social media any day. Pretty much every time I get on and I'll look at whatever the social media gods who run everything, the little things they let you watch on your feeds, they kind of select what you get to see. I don't think I get on any day now that I don't see some mention, somebody excited about, somebody got a copy of our guest's book, Cornerstones of Leadership. And so the buzz is really high, and I think I can understand why. Chief Leeb has demonstrated not only professional competence, coming up through the ranks and volunteer and the whole 9 yards and doing the job in FD&Y at every level, which, for you and Mike and I, that's important to us, that you actually do the job at the various levels and you do it well. You're not just scaling to scale. That matters to us, that you do it well. But also engaging on issues that are tough issues, the difficult stuff that folks don't necessarily want to talk about, like firefighter wellness and cancer and mental wellness, navigating the job and the things that come in, along with tactical proficiency, leadership, strategic competence, those types of things. So it doesn't surprise me, actually, that the book, there's so much excitement around it. And I'm excited. I got my copy, and I can't wait to dig in. I've been on the road for a little while, so I cannot wait to dig in to this book. But the book is Cornerstones of Leadership on and off the fireground by our good friend, Chief Frank Leeb from FD&Y. Brother, welcome to the show. We're going to spend the next hour and a half just letting you talk about everything that went into making this one of the most exciting things on the internet right now. And my hope is at the end of this program, that stack of books that you have behind you is going to be gone. And it's going to be going out across the nation to get into people's libraries and to really invest in their careers and in their people. So, brother, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, my brothers. I love Big Mike, the fact that you're down in Georgia with your family, the family traditions. Family's not one thing, it's everything. I know both of you guys preach that commonly, and I think that's just awesome. But you're not missing a show, right? It doesn't matter where you are on this planet. You're in the show, you're in the game, and I absolutely love that. You guys are on the road an awful lot, and I'm just so honored to be on, your show. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, well, you bet. Well, let me just do a little bio. I don't know if it's necessary or not, but let's assume there's one or two people in the corner of this great universe that don't know who you are, Chief. Deputy Assistant Chief with the FD&Y since 1992. Man, the olden days. Yeah, brother, back before the Dead Sea got sick. That was a long time ago.
So I have 31 years. So the date today that we're filming this, October 25th. I have 31 years today. So I'm
Awesome.
celebrating my 31st anniversary with two amazing leaders in our great profession that really know how to keep pushing forward. So I can't think of a better way than to be on a podcast with you guys to celebrate 31.
Well, dude, I salute, man. That's that, boy. Now I feel like we really have to step it up. We got to honor that. You are the chief of safety for the FDNY's 17,000 employees. You've been the chief of training, the chief of the fire academy. You got all the degrees that anybody would want, the bachelor's degrees and the master's degrees, and master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School Center for Homeland Defense and Security. That's awesome. On the advisory panel for ULFSRI, I had a chance to be a part of that, and on the emeritus board, so that's good times. And are on all kinds of NFPA committees, has written countless articles. I'm going to mention it in one of the questions, but let me mention it now because I just think it's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. When Chief Dunn, when Mike and I were interviewing Chief Dunn, remember that, Michael? We had Vinny on.
Oh, yeah.
He was going through his history and going through all this incredible stuff. And he made this little side comment about how many times he had written articles for WNYF magazine. And he kind of made an offhanded comment of, yeah, I used to be the guy that had written the most articles for that storied historic magazine. But Frank Leeb just put one in, and now he's written more articles than I have for W. And I remember, Mike, we stopped and we went, oh my gosh, that's a pretty good accomplishment. So, all the stuff you could want, gang, including now, speaks and teaches all over the country, and now has written one of the books that I think there are more firefighters excited about getting a copy of this than any book that is on the market today. So, brother, welcome to the Mikey G and Mikey D show. And if you don't mind, we're going to let you speak pretty much from here on out. And I just want you to tell them everything and anything you can about the book. Here's an opening salvo. Give us an overview. So you obviously felt it important enough to take the difficult task to write a book. Why'd you write it? What's behind it, and how maybe is it a little bit different from some of the other books that are out there that talk about leadership concepts?
Wow. So first off, talking about Vinny Dunn, right? I mean, just to the fact that he's, I had lunch with him not too long ago, and that he's mentioning me as and complimenting me. And I look at, so I just stand on the shoulders of so many great people in our fire service, not just in the FDNY, right? And we'll talk about that later when we talk about training lineage, how all these different connection points are. And, I have a strong connection point to Chief Dunn and WNYF. I've written somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 articles just for that publication now. And I just look like I have learned so much from people that have written articles in that as a young firefighter, whether it's Mike Dugan or Vinny Dunn or just Jerry Tracy, all the people that have written for that magazine. And I was the beneficiary of all that information for years. And now to have the ability to in some small way pay it back, and the FDNY Foundation, which is the fundraising arm for the FDNY, they're the ones that sponsor that publication. And when I was at training, I tell you, man, if I had a request, if I needed something to be funded, they were right there. So it's just the all-around system to be able to write for that magazine and contribute back where, 20 years from now, somebody maybe will be reading something that I wrote. And most of the articles I wrote, especially early on, I wrote on topics that I didn't know enough about when I responded to an incident. And that led me to research it and write about it. People say, man, you must be an idiot. You've written a lot of articles on stuff you didn't know enough about. But I said, I have been a student of my profession since the very first day I walked into the firehouse. And if I don't know something about it, there's definitely other people that don't know about it. And that was really the start of it. And then a couple of my recent articles was on, in the next issue of WNYF, I have a couple of articles, but in the last issue, I wrote a 20-something page article on the Twin Parks fire, just because I wanted, and I know, so you're told when you write an article, 700 words, everybody reads it. 700 words, 2 pictures, everybody will read it. You'll get 50 people tell you they love the article. As you go up in the size, you get, no one reads it, right? But with that article, it was truly a labor of love to pay tribute to the members of the FDNY that responded to that incident, because they put forth a Herculean effort. 100 people would have been dead instead of 17 if it wasn't for the actions of the FDNY, our ability to train, our ability to operate in the gray area, right? The gray area is where we know, and that's where we earn our paycheck, right? That's where we earn our stripes, and our ability to do that because we are well-trained. The training is part of our DNA. It's ingrained in our culture, right? That's why Mike is still doing these podcasts, right? Because it'll never leave you, right? It doesn't matter. And that is so important that I wanted to make sure that I put this article out for generations to read and understand that it always comes back to training and education, because the bottom line is it doesn't matter if you are a grocery store owner, you're the owner of Apple, you FedEx, it doesn't matter, or you're in the fire service. Training is the heart and soul of your organization. If the groceries are out on the shelves, you can't even check out of the supermarket if the clerk doesn't know how to ring up the groceries. So it is all about training and education. Without it, no organization could be successful. But in our profession, there's too many organizations that don't recognize the vital importance of it. And maybe they don't train, or they do other stuff, and there's stuff that clouds it or gets in the way of their vision to knowing that you have to train, because you could cut the training budget and get away with it for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, but eventually you're going to pay that back with dividends. And it's in civilian injuries and deaths, and it's with firefighter injuries and deaths. And it's always who holds the bag. It's typically the firefighters and the company officers, right? When we don't have good procedures or we don't enforce good training, it really is the foundational for leadership. It is the foundational cornerstone for your building. And if you don't have that, you have cracks in that foundation. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what else you do. You could have a great community relations. You could have all these other things. It doesn't matter. But training is what matters. And without it, you're heartless, and you're not really going to go anywhere. And if you don't want to train, just go into another profession, right? Or if you're a volunteer, don't be a volunteer firefighter. Go join the Knights of Columbus. They need people too, right? They're a great organization. There's a lot of good civic organizations that you could do stuff if you're not willing to do the dedication to training, because it's not about a paycheck. Professionalism is not defined by a paycheck. Whether you're a volunteer or career, fire burns the same, fire injures the same, fire kills the same, and you must be ready. And again, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, what profession. You got to be ready and into the game. So I know I didn't even answer your question.
Oh,
like,
no, look, bro, you don't have to worry about it. You are in a friendly space. I want you to riff. I want you to speak from your heart. And if we answer the questions, that's awesome. And if we don't, if we get what we just got, we're good.
We're good.
Excellent.
And very honestly, it kind of leads us into the next question that we have to kind of lead the discussion. And that's all we want to do. You have some great lessons learned while serving as a volunteer firefighter. Our friend Tommy Merrill, who speaks eloquently about the professional volunteer fire service. Talk about the concept of professionalism. You talked about the training, but talk about the concept of professionalism beyond the paycheck.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And he does a great job. Tom does a great job of advocating and making sure that we understand that, hey, we're professionals, right? Because I can't stand when you hear somebody say, are you a professional or a volunteer? I'm like, well, no. Both are volunteers. It's, are you career or are you volunteer? So take the paycheck out of the equation. I know plenty of great firefighters that are in my volunteer department that would do just as good or better than some of the firefighters. So it's maintaining that professional demeanor, that winning mindset, that understanding that that we have to. It's always trying to be a better version of yourself, right? Tomorrow, you're a better version of the person you were yesterday. I mean, think about the version that each of us was 20, 30 years ago when we first started in the fire service, right? We're different people. Hopefully, we're better people, certainly more well-rounded, better trained. Our world views, both within our departments and outside, have probably evolved in a positive way. And I think that's, I think that's all part of it. And seeing that leadership in my department, in my volunteer department, I was around my volunteer department when I was 7 years old when my brother joined. I had no shot but to be a firefighter. So I did. It's funny because right around that time, they were ripping up my street. They were putting sewers in. So there was a time I wanted to be a digger man. I was the only one that was excited that they were ripping up my street. No one else was happy because we had to park the car 2 blocks away. But I loved watching them move the dirt, rip up the concrete, right? It was fantastic. And then the one day, I'm outside watching, and I have my little Tonka trucks out there, and the driver of the truck asked me if I want to go sit in the truck. And I'm like, wow. And I think about every single day in the fire service, when people walk into our firehouses, the privilege that we have, that they want to come in. And I think about the feeling that I had in that truck where I wanted to do that. And then when I was brought to the firehouse and my first ride on the fire truck, and I tell people in the FDNY, those 4 letters mean so much more than just the FDNY, right? It's being a leader in innovation, a leader in tools, a leader in teaching, whatever it is, right? It means so much more. Be worthy. And I tell the people in East Farmingdale Volunteer Fire Department, that EFFD on the back of your coat means so much more. Be worthy. When you're out and about in the community and you're wearing a T-shirt, they see it's you. You have 17 stickers and a license plate that says you're a firefighter on your car, and you're doing something that's stupid. Be worthy, because you are a reflection of us, whether you're a career or whether you're a volunteer firefighter, especially when if you're like me, like I'm always wearing a fire department shirt or a hat. You know, my license plates are firefighter license plates. I do have stickers. So I'm all in, brothers, right? Just like you. But that comes with a great responsibility to our profession and to those that were here long before us, and to make sure that we leave this profession in better shape than we found it, and that we're teaching that next generation of how we get there. And I think that is where it is. And in the volunteer service, when we increase standards, I remember a couple of our chiefs when I was a new firefighter and I was watching. I tell people, it doesn't matter what department you're in, there's people that are always watching you. When you're in a leadership position, people are listening to what you say, but then they're validating it by your actions. And if your actions don't match what you're saying, that's like watching a Chinese movie that has, the subtitles and nothing matches and it's hard to pay attention. Yeah. And I think, and that's what it is, right? Someone's talking, but they're not making any sense because their actions don't match that. So you got to be genuine, sincere, loyal. I mean, you have to be competent, right? I mean, you shouldn't get to, and you mentioned it in the intro, you shouldn't get to a position where I am or where you gentlemen were in your organizations, right? You don't get there if you're not competent, right? You have to know what you're doing. So competency, I say, okay, well, we have to have that, because I've worked with plenty of people where I'm like, they're incredibly competent, but they're an idiot because they don't know how to deal with anybody, right? So think about those people. And if I'm trapped in a fire or a collapse, they're the people I want coming for me, but working with them on a daily level, whoa, that's tough, right? And no one wants to follow them. And you think about it, you say, that guy is the complete package, or that girl's the complete package. If they only knew how to deal with people or had those bedside manners, and that's what people lack. And honestly, that's really what this book is about. This book is about those soft skill leadership things, how to treat people, right? The golden rule, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated. And it deals with a lot of those topics and a lot of the several of the topics that are more difficult to talk about, because I've experienced it and I've seen it in my career, and I can equate it to different experiences because, man, I've had an amazing run. 31 years, I've worked in some of the best firehouses with some of the greatest people that are on the planet, not just in the FDNY, but that are on the planet. And the same thing with my volunteer department, the people I've been exposed to, the lessons and how much I've learned from them. And it's to have all these different stories and from the experiences I had. And that was really where the book idea, I guess, was born, because I did the keynote for Firehouse Expo last year. And that was when I was asked to do that. After I did that, the reception that it got was so overwhelmingly positive, with people telling me, you got to write a book. And that was kind of where it grew out of, from that. And then here we are, and it evolved a little bit, where it was the Cornerstones of Leadership, and not the Cornerstones of Training, because you could make a case that I mislabeled my keynote, that I called it the Cornerstones of Training, but it was really the Cornerstones of Leadership and the other topics that I talked about. And that adjustment actually was made by my son, who did an awful lot for the book. But that's where it came from, and then just tying it into all these stories. Previous to the keynote, I had some people that would tell me, you got to write a book. I'll help you. You got to write a book. You're familiar with the researcher, Sarah Jenke. She's probably one of the earliest ones who was on top of me about, hey, you got to write a book. Your experiences are crazy. You got to write a book on it. And whether it's responding to Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Harvey, plane crash in the Rockaways, or there's just so many different experiences that tie into different leadership aspects that then my good friend Chris Stewart, who retired as a deputy chief out of Phoenix, he was ultimately the one that put me over the top, as he was sending me different podcasts and links to books and saying, hey, this is what your book would look like. And he was comparing it to Admiral McRaven's books, Make Your Bed and Wisdom of the Bullfrog. And that really was maybe, I read those books and I'm like, yeah, I could do this, because I was like, who's going to want to hear fire stories in a leadership book? And, but the leadership principles are time tested. They're not new, but they are focused on a lot of the soft skills. Oh.
Second alarm, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in the game with a second alarm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, the FDNY phone and all the apps and the stuff that I have on that are just remarkable. How much information, I'm as Buffy as you can be, which is, for me, it's being a professional, right? I got to make sure I'm monitoring what's going on, but it's really remarkable how much information is at my fingertips. I could go on, I could see who's there, who's working. I could get live video feeds from it. Our command tactical unit will be there. So they'll put up a drone footage. So in the next 20 minutes, I'll have actual drone footage streamed directly to my phone. Wow. I go on the Citizen app and see who's crowdsourcing, who's videoing live from the scene, listen to the live handy-talkie transmission. It's really, it's incredible. It's a buff like me. It's a dream come true to be able to be engaged to that degree. Yeah, it's great.
Well, cool, man. Well, it's interesting. You said how blessed you were, just to be reminded, just the privilege of being able to be in a truck. Right down towards the end there, it was probably about the last 6 months before I retired, and we were out doing inspections. And you've done inspections. It ain't like that's the most exciting deal in the world, right? We try to make it sexy. We made drills out of it. We'd put the stick up and we'd practice pickoffs, but we were doing inspections. And we're letting the recruit drive the rig, he's got to get his sets and reps on the rig and drive. And we're driving around. And I confess, I'm a little tired, and I'm like, oh, we're out doing inspections and we got to do this. And then I'd rather be doing something cool. And the recruit looked over at me and he just had this just awesome look on his face. And he said, sir, can you believe I get to drive a Seattle fire truck? And it was just this, this sense, this privilege, this unbelievable awe. And it was a real, it was a convicting moment for the old truck captain who was just, here we are, Groundhog Day, damn, we got, 20 buildings to get to and whatever else. And I'm like, I gotta tighten up today. I gotta get my mind in the game and realize every single day, this is a privilege, and on that day, it was the recruit that convicted the old guy, to get focused, right?
To serve in the fire service is an absolute privilege. Yeah. To have the opportunity to save a life is a privilege. Yeah. And, a lot of times when I teach, I'll ask everybody, raise your hand if you've rescued somebody ever in a fire. And typically it's less than 10%. Yeah. Right. Or right around 10%. Yeah. And then I say, raise your hand if you've trained on that. And everybody raises their hand, right? It's being prepared mentally, physically, and knowing that when you're called upon, that you're going to be ready to do the job. And that's what it's about, right? That's what they're expecting. they rightfully so. That's what those that we're sworn to protect and serve are expecting.
Right.
And I talk about it in New York City. We're interchangeable parts. I can take a firefighter and put them anywhere in the city, and they'll be able to operate because we operate on the same, offer the same procedures. We don't have that deviation. So you just have to be lucky enough and privileged enough to be in that spot but you got to be ready to perform when you're called upon, because anybody can be called upon, but we all are equally trained and prepared. And that has to be our mindset, that winning mindset, because in the FDNY, we play to win on every run of every tour, every single time out the door. Losing is not an option. Mike, has losing ever been an option for you?
Nope. Nope.
Mike,
And very honestly, Chief, you talk about it all the time. I've asked the same question you did. How many of you have made a rescue? When you get the smattering of hands, how many of you have been trained to make a rescue? And everybody hand goes up. And then I go back to the guys who raised their hand the first time. How many of you would be able to have made that rescue without proper training?
It all goes back to
goes
training.
up.
All roads lead to training. All roads lead to training. Mike, in Seattle, it was all about winning, right?
Oh yeah, and carrying that idea that I remember John Norman said, it was a really convicting moment. He said, we were sitting in class. He said, you have from this moment right now until the next alarm to prepare yourself to be ready to meet the demands of that alarm on behalf of the citizens. And it was just like this. I mean, I've heard that type of comment 1,000 times in my career. The way he said it, the context we were in, it was just this convicting moment of there's no do-overs. When the bell hits, training's over, baby. It's done. Got what you got. The minute the tones drop, you got what you got, and you're either prepared for what the citizens need or you end up being a liability.
And if you're a liability, you know it, right? So a firefighter knows when they didn't do their job. Yeah. And, I look at like it's baseball playoff time right now, right? And watching the games the last couple of nights, there were just a couple of game sevens. And like they know when game day is, right? They're able to prepare. Yeah. But you see the winning mindset in the teams that are left, right? That they play to win. Starting pitchers are coming in relief. They're pitching more innings than they would normally do on their day that they normally throw in the bullpen, because that's what it's about, right? If you want to take it to the next level, it's about making sure be the best that you can possibly be at your profession, whatever that profession is. We're firefighters, so that means we should be training consistently and constantly because it has life and death consequences. Yeah. And we just have to make sure that those that are advocating for us for funding and for staffing and all that they understand that, because it literally is the difference sometimes between life and death. And training enables the moments that never happen matter the most, right? If I'm able to make it where a firefighter doesn't get cancer or doesn't get injured, right? So a couple of years ago, we had an air condition fall on the head of a firefighter. He had his helmet on. It was on properly. If he didn't, the helmet was destroyed. He would have been dead. If he didn't have his helmet on, he would have been dead.
Right.
Right. So like you think of those little things that make us hard to injure and impossible to kill. And it's training. It's preparation. It's wearing your equipment right. And, I remember an early fire that I had. It's February of 1993 with my captain, Gene McGowan. Now, this guy gave me the two pieces of advice, the biggest piece of advice I've ever gotten in my career. Learn something from everyone you meet. Sometimes you'll learn what not to do. Yeah. And then he told me to read something fire-related every day, every tour. I have done that with the exception of a couple of months after September 11th. I have done that religiously. I continue to do that. And nowadays, it's easy. There's so many great podcasts. There's so many great instructors. There's so many great articles and books. There's so much. You go on YouTube and just type in uncoordinated ventilation, or go on, there's so many different ways that you could be dedicated to the profession. And Corley Moore, his book, The 9 L's, he mentions in that if you read something related to your profession for an hour a day, in 2 years, you'll be one of the top people in your profession. And I'm like, I've been doing that for 31 years.
And look where you are.
It has served me well, both on the fire ground, right? Because as a young firefighter, I wanted to be tactically brilliant. I wanted to be as good as I could be tactically. I remember when I was in SOC when I was in Squad 270. I wasn't happy enough with the bulletins that we had. I would take out the owner's manual and I would know every single thing about that tool. I knew its limitations. I knew how it would work. I knew how to do the maintenance on it. I knew every single thing I could learn about the equipment. And that's what the firefighters I worked with did as well. And that's that additional dedication to your profession to make sure that you are at the top of your game. Derek Jeter, right? One of the best ball players of all time. He would go out and take ground balls for an hour every day.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods would putt the 3-foot putt for an hour a day, right? Did he need to do it? You might say, nah, you don't need to do that. But that's how he maintains his proficiency, his professionalism. And that's how you stay at the top of your game, by making sure that you are constantly engaged. Because there's going to be times, I mentioned that fire, February 1993, Kings Highway and Avenue D in Brooklyn. Fires out a whole bunch of windows on 2 floors. Where I'm in an engine company, we're assigned to stretch the line. We stretch the line. We go up there. We open the hallway door. It's lights out. So we have to charge the line in the stairwell. We open up the door and we're inching down the hallway. Gene McGowan is the officer with me, Captain Gene McGowan, and I'm getting burned up immediately, and I can't be any lower than I am. I'm not sure where the heat's coming from. It feels like it's radiating off the walls or behind me. I have no idea. I hear the radio transmissions of the truck companies giving 1045s, meaning they have a victim. I hear them forcing the doors, and then I'm on fire. What happened was we didn't have hoods yet, but I didn't have my ear flaps down. Why? Because I had a firefighter that told me, bro, when you go to a fire, you don't want to use your ear flaps because you want to feel the heat so you know when it's time to go. And I'm like, man, I didn't know that was bum advice.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, all right. So I listen, ear flaps are up, and now I'm burning. I know I'm burning. So here I am. I got a solid 3 months on the job. Hey, Cap with 30 years. Hey, Cap, it's a little hot in here. I think we should get out of here. He's going to tell me to pound sand, right? Get lower, figure it out, right? So I took my beating. We went down. I'm going like this. I'm trying to cover my ears. I'm trying to do anything I can, and nothing's working. We get down. We extinguish the fire. We come out. On the way down, this salty dog from Rescue 2, he says, hey, man, what'd you think of that? I'm like, I got my deer in the headlights. Look, the Kool-Aid smile. And I'm like, that was great. And he goes, well, that was a 10-year fire. You go 10 years and you may never see a fire like that again. And I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
So we get downstairs and the captain explains, we go over everything about the fire, go back to the firehouse. He had burnt himself too. He winds up taking medical leave. I didn't, but I learned an incredibly valuable lesson. I had people work for me for a couple of weeks, so I got a couple of weeks off because my ears were blistered. I was the weak link on the fire ground, and I would never, ever let myself be the weak link on the fire ground again.
Yeah. And
now you will never see me on the scene of a fire ground without all of my equipment on, with my waist buckles fastened. I will have a flashlight. If there's a thermal imaging camera, I will have that. I will have a handy talkie. I will have my hood on. I will have my flaps. I use whatever you're giving me to make me hard to injure and impossible to kill. I am using,
right?
Because I don't want to be the weak link. And sometimes we confuse aggressive firefighting with not being safe, and that's nonsense.
Right.
A safe firefighter is an aggressive firefighter when it's applied the right way, right? So, and I'm not saying be a safe firefighter, never go in. No. Get in and get after it. But make sure all these things we just spoke about, right? Because if I get caught up because I don't have my waist buckle fastened, and now I get caught up on a bicycle, we don't have an aggressive interior attack anymore. We have an aggressive rescue attempt.
Yeah, we do.
We don't even care about the fire anymore. So that nonsense of, we are aggressive and we don't worry about some of those things. Flashlight should be charged. Handy talkie. Your wattage drops if your handy talkie is not fully charged.
Right.
Make sure you turn it off at night. Just little things like that. You go out Friday night, you go out all night, you stumble into the firehouse at 4:00 in the morning, you relieve somebody, and now 8:00 you're going out the door, and now you're not ready. You're not 100%, and that you get away with that 99% of the time, but this time you don't.
Yeah.
It's just there's little things that we can do to just be aggressive, but be smart about it, because no one goes to work with the idea of I'm going to get injured or killed today. Right? There's an expectation that we should want to come home at the end of our tour. And that's the way it should be, right? I mean, everybody's got someone that, that wants you to come home. I used to say, do it for your spouse. And I get people, I don't want to do anything. Well, forget it. Do it for your dog. Somebody at home loves you, you miserable bastard. It could be your goldfish, but somebody wants you to come home. Your goldfish needs to be fed.
Yeah.
But somebody wants you at home, right? And that goes even what you talk about it a lot, right? When you talk about that's mama's air, right, or something along, right?
Yeah, sure.
And remember that, right? That when the revival alert goes off, right? It's time to get out. That is the air for you. That's your family's air. That's what ensures that you're coming home. And I love that you talk about that, because you put it in a way that people, you can relate to it. You say, yeah, you know what? They do need me, because your training protects not only you, but it protects those you love, right? Obviously, it obviously protects the people that we're sworn to protect and serve. But if you break your leg, or you don't get a paycheck, right? A volunteer that doesn't get a paycheck because you got hurt, or you're injured or killed, like, who's providing for your loved ones? Right? I mean, you become negligent in that aspect as well. So you just got to remember that it's the whole package on what training impacts, and it really does impact every single thing, every single person that is in our lives.
Yeah, man. Well, well said. There's so many things we could plumb there. I feel like, like you, I'm doing a lot of these round tables now, because everybody wants to do round tables after you do your actual classes. And the term right now is we spent so long, kind of being so safe, we were unsafe. Nobody wanted to do anything, or, you couldn't do anything. Now we're pendulum them in this way to where it's, if you don't have aggressive in your class title, nobody wants to come to the class. And I feel like I'm saying more and more and more to these folks that are aggressive. It's like, hey, it's baked in the cake for a firefighter. There's no other way. There's no other way to do what we do without getting in there, getting dirty, getting stinky. That's just the way it is. Be aggressive. Just don't let it make a damn fool out of you. We're not kamikaze pilots, right? We're not one-way kamikaze pilots. We're warriors going in to do something that very few people can do. And if we don't do it in the right way, people do not survive. We're not kamikaze pilots.
Yeah, and I would say, and that's a great analogy, right? It's baked into the cake. Firefighters are aggressive. I've never had to say, hey, guys, can you get in there?
Right.
But I always, often, hey, we're going to switch to an exterior attack, right? Then I get one more minute.
We got this. We got a room.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Yeah. And next thing you know, I'm like, I'm not a math wizard, but if I added up all those 1 more minutes, that's like 18 minutes. So, and I get that, right? I want that, right?
Yeah.
Firefighters are eternal optimists, which, thank goodness, we need them to be. But in the next issue of WMYF, I wrote an article about the hierarchy of optimism, right? So at the top, right, I'm the most, as a chief of safety or chief of department, I'm the most pessimistic person on a fire ground, right? That's the risk tolerance pyramid. I have less tolerance for risk because I'm the safety net. I'm what ensures, I'm ensure that, hang on, go ahead. I'm the what ensures that you go home to your family. If I act just as aggressively as you do, well, I'm not helping anybody, right? That's my job to make sure that I'm doing that. And my firefighters, no, go be aggressive. I want you to say 1 more minute. I want you to be doing that because that's in our DNA. It's baked into us. So I don't work with firefighters that aren't aggressive, right? I mean, I hear they're out there, but I don't work with them because they all go in. Even a slug goes in, right? I mean, they're going in with the other brothers and sisters as part of the team. Because the FDNY procedure, particularly the FDNY procedures, are built on the team concept, with individuals expected to execute those assignments as part of the team. So 1 + 1, right, doesn't equal 2. It's false multipliers on the scene, where 1 + 1 = 8, and we get the job done by everybody executing their assignment. And when one person or two people or three people, it starts to get that snowballing effect, that's when we see the severe negative consequences. And hopefully we're able to stop that before it becomes a serious injury or a line of duty death.
Let's kick to again, you started down the road of writing a book, and you shared from your experiences throughout the chapters of the book. You talk a lot about mentoring. You refer to people who have invested in you, those types of things. Tell us about the importance of mentoring, a few of your mentors, and maybe a couple of the quick lessons that you learned that you feel like would be impactful for everybody.
Yeah. So while I'm talking about this, you two think about who were your biggest mentor, and if you know it, who was their biggest mentor.
Right.
Right. So if we could put this on Ancestry, right, and say, okay, here's the family tree, here's my family tree of training. My mentors, so obviously Gene McGowan, Tom Richardson, Jerry Tracy, so many other people, right?
Yeah.
And, Mike Dugan, I've read his articles, so I have a training lineage to him. Alan Brunacini, I have a training lineage to him. Bobby Holton, I have a training lineage to him, right? And then who are all your children, right? I mean, I know Mike Dugan had a line of people that wanted to go in his company.
Yeah.
Because it had a strong, they went to fires, but they had a strong training lineage. A lot of people got promoted out of there. A lot of exceptional people came out of the companies that he worked in. So you think about who are all those children that you have out there. You have probably, each of you probably have thousands of them because you're still teaching. And then who are the branches off of them? And you think about all of these different things, the offshoot. So maybe the person who's not in your department, or I read an article from that person. So that's that's a distant cousin, but they're all part of that family tree. And then I recently asked Tom Richardson, I said, recently when I was writing a chapter that was going to include him, and he didn't know it at the time. And honestly, I didn't know which direction this was going to take, but I asked him, who was your mentor, and what was the parameters that you used to form Squad 270? He was the first captain of 270. And he said that he wanted people with heart. He could teach them how to do anything. And I said, well, who taught you that? And who was your mentor? And he said, John Vigiano. Everybody in the FDNY and in many, and probably most of the fire service knows who John Vigiano is. Right? So now I want to know who John Vigiano's mentor was. And that's why I asked you, so who was your mentor? And do you know who their mentors were? And then, we could trace this all the way back, right? If we had Ancestry, we could trace this all the way back to who knows, maybe, some legendary people at the beginning of our job. Because I can tell you that when the training lineage stops is because there's a slug, right? A slug that keeps all the information to themselves. So, the firefighter that goes to a training conference and doesn't share the information when they get back, right? They just keep it all, right? So we try and keep the training lineage alive in several ways. We update our procedures and put some of the why from the people before they leave. Man, that's a great little nugget, Mike Dugan. Let's put that in Lattice 3. Let's put that in our private dwelling bulletin so we can keep that going. But when we look and see who we've impacted, and the roots are grounded generations ago. So when we say we stand on the shoulders of giants, we can demonstrate that in a lineage, in a training lineage. And I just think it's fascinating because in the FDNY, you could train it. You'll probably be able to trace it right back to different medals that people are named after and stuff like that. So either one of you, who's your mentor, and do you know who their mentor is? I'm sure it's a great person.
Right.
Well, mine too, I know. My first captain, Danny Marshall, and I know his mentor was John O'Rourke, who was the chief of department. And my other mentor is Vinnie Dunn. And I'm not sure who his mentor is, but I know who some of them are, I think. And but Chief Dunn helped me get my first article published.
So you think about that, right? And Chief Dunn, I mean, my goodness, how many children does he have in the fire service?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
And is still creating.
Every
still
single
creating.
member of the FDNY, every single member of the FDNY is a descendant of Vinnie Dunn just because of collapse of burning buildings.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
Every single one of them has read that, right?
Yep.
So when you think about that impact that you can have, and it's a real tangible way, because again, no one's ever going to say somebody that you're like, oh boy, he was your mentor. That guy didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
Well, that guy treated everybody poorly. You'd show up at work and you'd see his car was there and you'd be like, oh, it's going to be a miserable day.
Right.
Right. Those people end, that branch of the tree dies with them.
Right.
And if you have too many of those people, for however that happens, that's when your culture of your job, your DNA, that's when that changes, because we pass our DNA, our training lineage on from generation to generation in the FDNY. And that's because someone 100 years ago, 150 years ago, established a strong training lineage, a culture in the FDNY. And in my volunteer department, I see that same lineage with people. And I think when you look at it that way, if we were able to build it out, it would be a phenomenal tree that would go back to the founders of our departments and even beyond, right? I mean, it'd go back to the Ben Franklin days, right?
Right.
Yep.
You find out that on your training tree, you're a descendant of Ben Franklin. We just can't figure that all out, but we could be, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, no, there's still things I'm researching. I found out something in a book by Gary Abanowitz about the FDNY, and there was a volunteer engine in the 1860s to 1880s known as the Dugan engine. And I'm like, what? And I was like, I took pictures of this and everything else, and I said, holy crap, my whole career has been built on a falsehood. I should have been an engineman.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you're like, what? You sure it wasn't a truck?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's hysterical.
That's great. Well, yeah, I mean, and that's it, right? You're just always learning. Always stay learnable. That means having a beginner's mindset, understanding that there's so much to learn in our field, in other fields, whatever it is, right? But if you're closed-minded, then you're just not going to be able to learn. So that beginner's mindset, staying learnable, certainly principles that I still use today. I love when I learn something new.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. And we'll continue on with our questions because it kind of so ties in. Chief Dunn, Vinnie Dunn, shared with us that you've now been published in WNYF, as we mentioned, more than anyone else in history. What is the significance of writing the articles and sharing your knowledge? But more importantly to me, this one, what are the books you feel are essential to reading? I have a reading list I share with students of my 15 top books for leadership and what I think you should learn. And then I also use the Marine Corps reading list, which I think every department should put together, which goes by rank, what you should read by rank, which I think is phenomenal. And I tell people this, but I think that those are such important characteristics. I always say readers are leaders, and, read a book and read something every day about the fire service. And then also I'm on vacation. I got a fun read that I'm reading now for my vacation, but read and spend some time increasing your knowledge.
Yeah, I totally agree. And fire service books and non-fire service books. I mean, I certainly did a ton of reading when I went to the Naval Postgraduate School. The first assignment was 19 books showed up my door and said, it was June, and they said, have these read and have a 2-page report for each of them by September. And I'm like, well, there goes my summer.
Yeah.
But out of those original books that I had to read, still one of my favorites was Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yeah.
And it teaches you how you think.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good. A really good book. I think Think Again by Adam Grant is a great book. Yep. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walken is a great book. I think Cornerstones of Leadership is not too bad.
I'll hold it up. I'll hold it up longer.
I know that's shameless, yeah, but I still love Collapse of Burning Buildings by Dunn. Obviously, is a great book. Why Buildings Fall Down is a really good book. Is also one, Why Buildings Stand Up. I own both of those. They're both good. I also love Young Men of Fire, about the Man Gulch fire. That's another
Man Gulch fire.
Yeah, that's another one that I really enjoyed. Oh boy, all three of the Pass It On books I think are great. And I mentioned the book I mentioned earlier, Corley Moore's The 9 L's. I think is a great book as well. So, and I, you know what? There's so many. Your marriage book. I read that and passed it on to a couple of firefighters. The firefighter marriage. I mean, it's just there's so it's. I hate to because I know I'm leaving books out. You know, but as I'm glancing over to my bookshelf, I'm like, what are the books? Because so many of them, I go out. So a lot of times I'll list if they're on a podcast or they're for fire service books or I'll buy if there's a soft cover, I buy that. If I want to keep it, I always buy the hardcover. So right now, my fire service books ideally are all hardcover because they're reference books to me.
Right.
So which is part of the reason why Cornerstones of Leadership is right now only a hardcover, and tried to make it affordable for as many firefighters as possible. But again, it's those soft skills that we're be brilliant at the basics. Know what you're doing, but then know how to deliver it, and don't be the person in any profession that say, "Man, Mike's really good, but boy, he doesn't know how to tell us. He doesn't know how to talk to us, right?" And then Frank doesn't know how to do that because then no one's going to follow you. And as good as you can be tactically, it's just a shame because too many people's careers are defined by that instead of being the great inclusive, all-encompassing leader that they could be because they're missing that one point. And if you train on it to be better, like we do with those hard skills, you can be that leader that people want to follow and listen to, and that's kind of the main goal here.
And I got to say, there are a couple of books that I honestly believe in that are not fire service books, but are self-help books. And I know firefighters hate to hear the self-help word, but Crucial Conversations, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There are all kinds of books along that line. I mean, Crucial Conversations, I still use all the time, because when someone gets angry, it's why are they angry? What did I say to make them angry? And you can see, did I upset them? Did I hurt them? Did I say something? And you can kind of back away and say, okay, let me reframe this. Let me change this. Let me help you understand where I'm coming from. And getting that gap between communication, between saying something and then wanting to reply and taking the time to process it and think. Because it used to be if I got into a fight with my wife, I wanted to beat her. In that fight, I wanted to be right, and I wasn't always right. And it's a huge, huge thing for me to admit that I wasn't always right. But understanding those things and things that can help you in your life with the marriage, communication, with anything else, being a better person are also books that should be on your reading list.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And then, and the other thing that I did with this book was each chapter concludes with 5 takeaways. And then, so there's 125 takeaways. And then in the last page of the book, we added 2 additional takeaways. So there's 127 takeaways. Those 2 are dedicated to Mark Ferran and Jim Yearsley as they go into retirement. And 2 takeaways that epitomize those 2 gentlemen. They epitomize a lot of people in the FDNY, so there's 127 takeaways, 5 in each chapter. They're all listed at the end. And I've had people tell me that every tour I come in, I email one of those takeaways to my crew. And Excellent. I'm like, that's fantastic. Yeah. So, and that was kind of why it's laid out that way. Because I look at the different books how I like books, right? And I love when I can have the takeaway or highlight. I highlight a lot of stuff in my books and take notes. So that's the the studier in me makes me, I can't help that, but that's helpful when I want to refer back, or I'm writing something or an article, or someone asks me a question, and I could quickly refer to my library and say, okay, well, this is where it is. Here's the page, and quickly find it. And it's a refresher for me as well, right? So it's really good. But the question started with the articles I write for WMIF, and again, I think that ability to, when a guy like Vinny Dunn, who I've been a student of him for decades, when he's mentioning me and what I'm doing and writing, that's
a good day. That's a good day.
Yeah, I pinch myself. I'm like, are you kidding me? Right? I've been reading this guy's stuff for my entire. I don't even remember when I started. I was so young. Like, it was just, he's always been a part of what we do, right? And why did
our fire service?
Yeah, that's right. And why did he start writing? He started writing because of the 23rd Street fire, right, where we lost 12 people, and we just had that anniversary. I attended that, and you know what I learned? That there's a descendant of one of the lieutenants that was killed at that fire that's on our job as a firefighter. I had no idea that was his grandfather. And he has two other relatives that are on the police department because they were all there. I couldn't believe it. But you think about, like, the lineage of just how Vinny Dunn started, and now how one of the guys that was killed there, his descendants are on the job and remembering it. And it just, we would not have had collapse of burning buildings if Vinny Dunn wasn't at that fire.
And very honestly, I mean, I go back, my buddy Michael Clark, who is now the chief of the Bath Iron Works Fire Department up in Maine. His father, Walter, was the chauffeur of Ladder 7 that night. And my friend that I worked with, Tommy Donovan, in 53 Engine, his brother was the survivor from 5 Engine, I think. But he was out writing summonses back then because they had an extra guy, and he was sent out to write the summonses. And he survived, and he was the only one who survived from his company. And it was just amazing stories. And again, the lineage, the footprint, how it all comes together.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. It really is remarkable how. And I was blown away when I saw the family there, and I knew about, Dunn, and that was the reason that he started writing. But it's all the interconnectivity of our profession is simply remarkable.
Well, let's. Are you ready to audible a little bit? You ready to shift?
Whatever you want.
Move? Yeah. All right.
I'm in, man. I'm in. Let's go. Let's do it.
All right. So we're gonna see how adaptive you are here. Let's talk about that incredible, storied, most profound time in your career when you dressed up like Hot Dog the mascot.
Yes, yes.
So you write about it in your book. So here's a question. We'll let you just rock and roll here. You write about an interesting time when you dressed up like Hot Dog the mascot. What's some lessons you can take away from your experience channeling your inner hot dog?
Yeah. So my inner hot dog. So I get promoted to deputy chief, and they said, you're going to be working with training and working in the field. The night before I get promoted, they say, oh, there's a change of plan. You're going to go oversee fire safety education. I'm like, oh, that's like a bait and switch. I said, all right. So I go and do that, and they still let me work with training and work in the field. So I'm doing a whole bunch of jobs at once. And I need to learn everything they're doing about everything that happens. And he told me that they have that the hot dog, only one guy likes to do hot dog because the costume is bulky. It's difficult. We don't know how to clean it. I'm like, all right. I'm like, who the heck is Hot Dog? And it's the fire department mascot. We have two of them. There's Hot Dog, and then there's Siren, the EMS one. That's like one for EMS, like a smoke alarm that has a stethoscope. Anyway, so Hot Dog is the dog, and I'm learning about all the positions that this unit does. They have a lot of great people that work in this unit. They're dedicated to fire safety education, educating the public. They do a lot of work, and one of the jobs is they dress up as Hot Dog. So the Columbus Day Parade is coming up, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to be hot dog for the Columbus Day Parade. So I go early, and they have a breakfast that I attend in Class A uniform because I don't want anybody to know I'm hot dog. So I go to the breakfast, and after the breakfast, I go into the van and I quick change out of it. And then I meet them at the beginning of the parade route, and man, I loved it. I was bouncing up and down around, going from side to side, high-fiving the kids, taking pictures with kids. I had a firefighter assigned to me. He was like my handler to make sure I didn't trip or anything. And the parade was over. I had such a great time. I had people say, I've never seen hot dog like that. We passed St. Patrick's Cathedral and the Cardinal's out front. I'm getting a picture with the Cardinal. He gives me a blessing. So then I'm wondering, am I blessed or is hot dog blessed? Everybody was telling me, no, hot dog was blessed. Luckily, at the next parade, I got the Cardinal blessed me personally, so I had it covered.
Yeah.
But it was just afterwards, I'm sweating, and then we figured out a way. We found a way to get it cleaned, and we streamlined the process, changed some things. But the people are like, why are you going to do that? I said, because why would I can't expect somebody to do something I wouldn't do myself. And I need to know the experience myself and do it. And it turned out I had a great time, and it reinforces lessons just as that. Like you want buy-in from your team, show them that you're a team player, that you are actually part of the team. Right. And I got in there and I did it, and I had a great time. The civilian leader of the unit, after that, we went on Fox and Friends to do a sprinkler demonstration for fire prevention. And that guy, Fabrizio Caro, he dressed as hot dog for that event, and nobody knew it. Just like no one knew I dressed as hot dog afterwards. So the fire commissioner wound up finding out. It was Commissioner Nigro at the time, and in one of our staff meetings, or one of our meetings after that, he says to me, "I heard that you were hot dog," or I heard something. Hot dog had a special guest or something. So he knew it, but didn't blow the cover on me. But it was such a good time, and just you saw how enthusiastic the people watching were. And if it's a position that we do that's worth doing, do it to the best of your ability. Embrace it. I loved it. Know what your people do. Enthusiastic leadership is contagious. When you show that you care for your team and you care for your people, they will do anything for you. And get out of their way. Don't micromanage them. Give them, this is what I want done. Go do it. And if they screw up, then maybe you got to give them a little bit more supervision. But I've never been disappointed when I tell my people, I want you to do this job, and they get it done. Yet if I micromanage it, then the project won't be done it won't be done as good. Right? They don't have any innovation with it. So this is what I want done. You figure out how to get it done. You know what you're doing. And people love that. People thrive with that.
Yeah. And if you micromanage them, they'll never learn. And you are not training the future then.
Yeah. And that's a critical point, right? We have to always be cognizant of mentoring our next generation. Somebody out of the Proby school is going to be a deputy chief on our job. There's always someone that's a deputy chief. Some of them will be staff. One of them may even be chief of department. So leadership and giving them that foundation, leadership starts on day one, and all of that continues. People say, well,
listen, I look at Timmy Keenan, one of my Probies.
Great example. Yep. Yeah, he's a great example, right? He could go as far as he wants to go, but he's always been into the job, and he's had some great mentors, and now he's mentoring and giving back. He's working on several projects with me, and I just tell him, hey, Tim, put your team together and get this done. I give him the parameters on it. He's working on some of the stuff, some of the recommendations from the Timmy Klein fatal fire from last year. He's working on that, and he's going to get it done. I just said, pay attention to this section of the fatal fire report. This is what I want. And I know he's going to achieve the goal because he always does.
Yep.
Right? And if I give him too much direction, I'll screw it up. It'll be on me. I'll screw it up, not him. So he's a great example of that. But it's always making sure, because you hear some departments, they say, well, if I train my people too good, they're going to leave. I said, if you don't, they're going to stay.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have, so if people leave to go to bigger departments, that happens. I get that. But be proud of that, and be proud of your training lineage and how you impact other departments. I think that should be a source of pride. But it should also be a source of pride that you are training your newest members with the goal that one of you will be leading this department at some point, that we have enough people in this department that we should not have to go exterior to our department because we've prepared our members from this department to lead our great department.
Right.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to talk a little bit about relationships are important to you. What do you mean by creating meaningful collisions? I love that term.
So, yeah, I love that term as well. And so that term, my son told me, he's like, what you're doing is you're making meaningful collisions. And so it's like when you meet somebody, right, that's doing great work in our profession or in another, and you say, wow, you two are doing the same thing. I can't believe you never met. And the next thing you meet, and now you're doing a radio show together, or you're teaching together, or you're whatever it is that you're doing. Or now, so for the researchers, right, I'll have people introduce me to a researcher, and the next thing you know, the FDNY is doing a research project with them. And that's what that is all about, is all of those different relationships, that cross-pollination that happens. I'm friends with researchers, both for cancer, for cardiac, for you name it, as well as the researchers at UL. So it's getting involved, and then you get those collisions. Being on the UL panel for the acquired attack, I mean, I call them external teammates in the book. Those people that I could call up, whether it's Dennis Laguerre, whether it's Kurt Isaacson, whether it's Ray McCormick, who's in my department, right? So he's not an external teammate; he'd be an internal teammate. But all these people that you could call, right? So however you meet them, think about the people that you meet on this radio show, right? That you're exposed to. You have so many, all these collisions and all these relationships that you have, that you could call up and find out information about something for a project you're trying to do, or a series of articles that you're trying to get, and you want to have different parts of the country represented. All of these things, these are these meaningful collisions that happen. And one of the best at that is the retired chief out of Fort Worth, Texas, Homer Robinson. He's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
He calls himself the bundler. That's what he calls himself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he introduced me to 4 different other people. And the next thing you know, there's a guy out of Philadelphia who I didn't know. This guy, Bud Henkels, who makes these training props. And the next thing you know, I'm buying one of those for our training facility to do hands-on training with these little small-scale models because of the bundler, Homer, in Fort Worth, introducing me. And I have so many relationships that have started that way. And that cross-pollination, that builds our fabric in our fire service so much deeper, because you're not relying on experiences just from your department. Early on in the pandemic, we had several relationships with the Seattle Fire Department. I still go on an operations meeting with several of the chiefs in Seattle and other chiefs that they bring on, and we may talk about just a fire. They may bring in a subject matter expert or someone who was at a fire to talk about their experience, and then those experiences are transferable, right? So then I have that, and I've done that several times with them. And these are things that happen because of other meaningful collisions that come about. So those are important, but that's why you go to seminars. That's why you go to FDIC. That's why you go to Firehouse. That's why all these different things, right? And there's so many learning opportunities, because afterwards, come up and introduce yourself to the speaker. And the next thing you know, you're collaborating on something, or they clarify something, or just whatever it is. That's the secret sauce. And I think for FDIC, right, that the instructors are usually there for a good part of the week.
Yeah.
So you're accessible all week. Like there's no reason, if there's someone you want to speak to at a seminar, like there's no reason you shouldn't.
Right.
Because we're all there. Right. And I think that's really one of the best parts about it. Sure, sitting on the classes, 4-hour class, 90-minute class, whatever it is, but also do the other stuff. I can't wait. I'll be out at FDIC this year the entire week. I got several things I'll be doing. UL's doing a boot camp. I'm going to be instructing for that. There's a high-rise conference. I'm keynoting that. And I'm doing my own class on Wednesday. And yes, that's a shameless plug for my class on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But
Plug away. Tell
Yeah.
them just a little bit. The title of the class, the time, all that. What are you doing?
Yeah, and I don't even remember the title of it because I know it's Wednesday afternoon. So when it comes out, you could look up. Frank Leeb. I think it's. So I know I'm talking about the interrelationship of fire dynamics and cancer in the fire service, and how it's related. So I talk about I think I'm pretty passionate about firefighters and cancer. We lose way too many. I'm tired of losing my friends, and there's simple things that we could do to be better. But a lot of younger firefighters in particular don't want to sit in on those classes. And I get it, right? As a young firefighter, I wanted to sit in on, Mike Dugan talking about truck operations or search operations, or Ray McCormick talking about engines or whatever, right? I get it. But we need our young firefighters to be educated in this. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to talk about fire dynamics, fire tactics, and strategy, and I'll talk about cancer. So it's like trail mix, right? You're eating the trail mix, and it's mostly granola bar. It's mostly granola, right? And that's talking about cancer. A couple of M&Ms, and that's when you start talking about tactics and strategy. So you kind of, you get some short-term energy and some long-term energy from trail mix, and that's kind of what this is designed for, is to combine them both and explain why I'm talking about both, because there is an interrelationship. The modern contents is why we have ventilation limited fires. It's why we're talking about higher heat release rates. And it's also why we're talking about higher cancer rates. And I talk about the best practices for all of those things and what we could do. So thanks for the opportunity to plug it. I can't believe I can't remember what the title is. I'm like, I should look it up real quick. But I know because they just sent it out too. So they just sent it out like yesterday, the day before. But yeah, it's, you can put it in the show notes.
That's one of the best moments of this whole thing. Doing a class, and I'll let you know what the title is when I remember it. So that's awesome. Man.
The titles are fluid.
Well, let me do a shameless plug. For the FDIC April edition of Fire Engineering Magazine, the Firefighter Air Coalition that Michael and I are participants with is going to include, with every fire engineering magazine that comes out, the Air Coalition has sponsored a supplement, and it's called Firefighter Air, and it's going to feature 4 significant articles on the 4 pillars of the Firefighter Air Coalition. And so we are going to have on the Firefighter Air Replenishment System side, Jerry Tracy and Jack Murphy are going to write an article on that. From the research and development side, and the article is going to be centered around the impacts of multiple bottles of breathing air on physiology and those types of things. That's going to be done by Gavin Horn, Richard Kessler, and Denise Smith. So we're bringing heavyweights to the plate here. And then the firefighter cancer article, one of the pillars of the Air Coalition is smoke and cancer. And none other than our beloved guest here, Chief Leeb, is going to be writing the article on updates and stuff that's going on with fire smoke and fire cancer. And then there's going to be an air management article being written by somebody nobody knows. So that'll be me. So it's going to be some heavyweights, and then you're just going to have to deal with me and that whole thing. But brother, we're actually excited to have you contribute to that. And you know what? Leadership is about accountability too. So here's a moment of accountability. I'm looking for a rough draft.
I know. I saw the email. I know. And so people need accountability, right? You want to show your people you love them by having a standard, by having a bar, and holding them accountable, right? So you're holding me accountable. So yesterday I got the email from Sarah. So from Sarah Jones telling me that my presentation will be Wednesday, April 17th from 1:30 to 3:15. And my class is Challenges of the Modern Fire Environment.
Nice.
I don't know if that was my name or that's what they changed it to. I'm not sure, but I like that name. Nonetheless, that was better than the way I described it. So hope to see everybody at there, and I will get you a draft of the article.
Awesome,
you made the
brother.
mistake of telling me we actually have a couple of months that you just need a draft.
Well, the bummer is you gave me your time slot for FDIC. Unfortunately, we're going head to head. because that's when I'm teaching the Go No Go class is right after lunch on Wednesday. So we'll be going head to head, brother.
That's it. This interview's over.
Yeah.
This podcast's over.
Let's. I'll tell you what. Let's finish off here. We're kind of up against it clockwise. Is there anything from the book that you feel is really, really crucial or essential that we haven't talked about? Is there any? Is there like a concept or two that maybe we could have asked a question about? And then Mike and I are very desirous with our guests that you would share your contact info because we would love for people to hire you. You keep mentioning the term slug. We don't bring slugs on our radio show. We've been doing the show for a long, long time now. And I just went back and looked through the folders of all the guests that we've had over the last, 10 years. And man, we've had some just wonderful, wonderful guests. And you're continuing in that tradition. Folks, we would love if you would give Frank a call and see if he can't come to your fire department and bless your troops. So anything from the book we missed that you think is crucial? And then how do our folks get a hold of you for questions or to hire you to teach?
I think you did a great job of recapping some of the main themes in the book. I think it's, like I said, it's about those soft skill leadership. It's not going to teach you how to stretch a hose line. It's not going to teach you how to force a door. There's plenty of books that teach you that. But this book is going to teach you how to put it all together and to be able to operate and inspire your people to do even greater things. And it's just lessons that I've learned in my 40 years in the volunteer service and my 31 years today in the city. And contact information. So this is, you probably can't see it, but that is my link tree.
Oh,
if you scan on that, that's actually in the book as well. And that's all different information or important stuff that I think that viewers or listeners may want to see. But also my email is firstresponderconsultant@gmail. You could Google my name, even Google Frank Leeb Linktree. You could see that. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Cornerstones of Leadership on Facebook. That's where I share. If you post a picture with the book or quoted a book and you make it a publicly available post, I share that on there as well. And it's been pretty cool. I had somebody post a picture from France. They had the book. They were reading it with their European helmet on in their tower ladder. And I said, it just doesn't get better than that. The book has been sold in 8 Amazon markets, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom. There's like all the different markets that it's been pretty impressive how much of a wide-ranging audience it has had, both firefighters and non-firefighters alike. So it's been a humbling experience. You could Google my name or the name of the book on Amazon, and it's available there. It's been a bestseller in 4 or 5 different categories at different times on Amazon. It's been an amazing ride so far, and I'm so appreciative to spend some time with you guys. And it's always a good time when you could spend an hour or so with some other like-minded folks that are into the job the way I am. It's a good day.
Yeah.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah, when we're talking about the people you want to hang out with, I always joked with the guys in the firehouse that, in my off time, I'm not putting roofs on houses. I'm not, laying carpet. I'm not selling cars and all the other things people do. When I'm not at the firehouse, I'm down at the training division trying to figure out how to develop new drills and doing sets and reps and figuring out ways to make, things more interesting or understandable or those. That's just what interests me. That's what fires me up. And I want to go be with those people, so I want to go be with the Mikes and the Franks, and I want to go be with the folks who really dig the job. And I can tell you that throughout everything you said today, brother, it's not a surprise, but through everything you said, that's what came through. That what we do matters, that it matters in a significant way, this calling that we have, and our role in it is essential, and you want to prepare to be really good at it. And I would remind all of you, when you're good at it, it's a lot of fun. Man, when you're good at this thing, and you're not worried when the bell hits and you're showing up and it's just like, okay, this went wrong. That didn't quite go the way we wanted it to, but that's okay. This thing we do is a lot of fun, and the people we do it with are awesome.
Yeah.
Here's the book, gang. You know what? I'm going to try to get this to where Cornerstones of Leadership, on and off the fire ground, training, teamwork, and mentorship by Chief Frank Leeb. I hope you will get a copy of it. Somehow, we haven't quite sorted it out yet. We like to do lots of fun stuff. But Mike and I are going to buy a copy of this, and we're gonna give it to one listener, one person who shares the podcast. Again, this thing will air next Wednesday, so you'll be seeing it then. So I guess, but we're gonna figure out a way between now and then. We're gonna post that we're giving away one copy of Frank. Frank has it at his house. He's gonna personalize it to you and send it to you just as a thank you from Mike and I for listening, for being a student of the game, and for sharing this with other people who might need to hear what the Chief had to say. Here's the thing. You just listened to this for an hour and a half. How many of your members, and maybe the members that maybe aren't quite as motivated as you are because you're fired up, you just spent an hour and a half or whatever listening to three old guys talk about fire and leadership and that type of stuff. So you're obviously engaged. But how many people are coming to your mind right now in your firehouse that would greatly benefit from the conversation Frank just had from his heart about loving this job, training in this job, passing it on, learning from your mistakes, leading? How many of your kind of fence sitters would really be blessed by that? We want you to share the link with them so that we can create more of you. We can cause a ripple effect, and good stuff is getting to all of our members, just not just the fired up folks. So, Michael, any last thoughts before we shut her down?
My last thought is I just want to say thank you to Chief Leeb. Frank, it's been a pleasure. But also, I just want to tell everybody out there is no shame in loving this job and being a buff, as the Chief said. There is no shame in that. Those are the people who want to be better. Those are the people who are going to come save your butt when you get in trouble, who are going to help you get better. Those are the people you want to be like. There's nothing wrong with that.
Love the job, and it'll love you back. The job is its people, it's its training, it's responding, it's all of that. And boy, I have loved the job, and I've gotten the love back. And it's just been quite a journey. And the more engaged you are, the more fun it is, the more you get back out of it. And so be engaged and don't be embarrassed, ashamed about it. It's okay. It's great to love the job. The three of us love the job.
Yeah.
And now look at us.
Yeah.
Look at us here on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, gang, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you had a blast. It's our privilege to have, again, every 6 weeks or so, we have the brightest and best in the fire service. And that certainly happened again this week. I would encourage you to get the book. Here it is once again. You can reach out to the Chief if you'd like him to come and teach and talk. And, from the bottom of Mike and I's heart, from when we first started doing this little radio show many, many, many years ago, our mission has stayed the same. We're going to bring you the brightest and best in the fire service. We're going to let them tell their story and share their passion. And so now we have shared the passion of Chief Leeb with you. And Mike and I would like to exhort you to find it in yourself, to find that thing in your department, find that thing in your firehouse, find that thing on your crew that fires you up, and dig this sacred calling that we have been given such a privilege to go on this ride. Our badge has been, gang, it has been fought for and sacrificed for and died for to mean what it means. Find that thing, find that passion, capture the energy that you just heard from Chief Leeb or that you always hear from my buddy, Captain Dugan. Find it, make it great, and go out and enjoy the heck out of the privilege that you've been given to be on the greatest ride in the world. You're on the ride of the fire service. And we're privileged to be on the ride with you, man. God bless. And we will see you next time on the Mikey G and Mikey D show. Rock on.
The Firestore, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Firestore makes is about you, the customer. They wouldn't be where they are today without you, and they don't take that lightly. They understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. The goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit them at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop the family of brands that include Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer,